Welcome, everyone, to Between the Cracks, the podcast where we do casual conversations around tea. My name is Dart, and today I'm joined by Derek.
Hello. It's Derek from One River Tea and the second partner of Tao Teaware.
That's right. My other half. So today we're going to start with In the Warehouse, a segment where we're going to talk about what's going on both sides of the business. So Derek, what do you got going on that side?
So yeah, I'm in China side, and what we're doing right now is we're getting ready for another shipment. And so this is really one of the funnest parts about the job is just getting all the new stock in, talking to all the makers, looking at the studios, and just deciding what we want stateside.
Yeah. And on my side, we just had a new shipment come in. And as you guys know, we do release a product or two every single month. We just sold out of our apple pie, these little guys, right? So these are sold out. But don't worry, we have new pots coming at the beginning of next month. And also thank you, because that was the first time that we had released a handmade pot, and it all sold out within a week of being released. So it's really exciting that we're able to get excited about the wares and give you guys things that you really love. So thank you guys for helping us sell out of the apple pie.
Yeah, let me say a few things about the apple pie, because that's been in the oven for a while, if you will. And so that was something I saw from Come In Studio when I visited them down in Chaozhou. I believe that was early to mid-April, right before I went to Yunnan for the pour, after the Dansong teas. And so, I came into Come In Studio just to hang out, and I saw all these new teawares that they were doing. Come In had this teacher come in, has maybe six or eight apprentices working under him in his studio, and he had challenged them all to make an entirely handmade pot. And what they were able to do is they were able to streamline this process and make, a handful of pots a day each. And so they were getting really excited. Their skills were getting really good, and they were making it really, really thin. If you've held one of these apple pie teapots, you know how thin and light it is. And they do this by just throwing it incredibly thin, and they really don't trim very much. And so it was really cool to see that, be able to buy it. And then what month is it now? It's August, and they're finally stateside and already all gone.
Yeah. And that was our second set of wares to sell out from Come In Studio. But as you said, these are the first fully handmade ones. The first ones we had are half handmade. So there's a mold used to create the shape of the body so that they can get the body done faster, basically. And additionally, these aren't burnished, so they're not smoothed out. And I think a lot of times, one thing that people often kind of misconstrue with teapots is that the smoother they look, the lower quality they are. And while sometimes pots with slip on them are like that, that's a burnishing effect that they do to smooth out over the outside of the body to get that. These don't have any of that. They have this wabi-sabi style where you can still see all of the throwing lines because they do so little trimming for them.
Yeah, I think that burnishing effect is really misunderstood by people who don't know pottery and people who don't throw ceramics, because I've had some Chinese people look at some of the Nixing teapots and they're like, "Oh, is this glazed?" And I'm like, "No, it's not glazed." And they're like, "Oh, it's probably been used for a really long time, like many, many years." I'm like, "No, it's pretty much brand new." And like, "Why does it look so smooth?" Because it's been burnished. When the clay is still wet, they use plastic rib. I've seen actually in the Come In Studio that what they use are little credit cards, like from business cards from different just plastic business cards. And if you're a potter, you just use whatever tool you have around.
That's cool. I mean, I was very excited when you first showed us these, and I'm super happy that I have one left.
Another pot that we have back in stock is that Don't Make Waves from the Nixing Studio. And here's another thing that we've been working on recently. Brand new stickers. And so if you see, this has a little logo, a little design behind our logo, and that's the new art design for the Don't Make Waves. And we have a few different styles of stickers coming out. So this is another thing we're working on China side, getting ready to ship to America. And yeah, man, it's really exciting to see these things coming to happen.
And the stickers are kind of part of a larger plan for our brand development in general. We also have all of our custom boxes on the way as well. And on those, we'll have actually little icons to show you what the different styles are, and we'll circle them as we send them out to people. And they're the mailer style boxes, so they're really easy to just open and reuse for storage after the fact, but they also look really cool too. So the stickers, the boxes, we have some pamphlets we're making as well to kind of go over the basics of teaware, gongfu style tea, and different styles of wares, because it's one of those things that you never know when somebody buys a teapot do they know all of these different locations and places, or is it something where we really should kind of go over and start from the basics? And we want it to feel like an experience when you're opening up your package from us, because we don't always get to hang out with you in person. So having that feeling of experience is really important for us, like as a company and as a brand.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of our main things, is to meet everybody at every level, really. And so, yeah, I mean, the more information you want, we have it. But if you're not ready for it, if you don't need to know the specific like location of it or the type of clay or the burnishing effects and all of that, if you just want a nice teapot, we can just give you a nice teapot. So
That's right. That's right. Cool. All right. So that's all for In the Warehouse. Next, we have our main topic of the day, which is, well, us. Not us specifically, but the brand itself, the origins of Tao Teaware. So this started in a very similar way. Me sitting right next to Derek, doing Instagram live videos for One River Tea, what, 5 years ago now?
yeah, 4 or 5, yeah. I remember that apartment. That was like 5 apartments ago for me.
Yeah. It started kind of in a weird place for me, where I knew I was coming back to the U.S. in 6 or 8 months, and I was dealing with like, how am I going to bring this experience of China, everything that has, become a part of me in the last 3 years? Like, how am I just going to go home and leave that? And as we sat down doing these Instagram live videos for One River Tea, it really got my wheels turning, and especially seeing Derek as a professional, because we have worked together as professionals at the school we worked at, but seeing him in the tea space and my love of tea, it's one of the 3 reasons why I went to China, was, I don't know, it was just the catalyst that kind of started it, this happy combination of factors all working together.
Let's see. I remember giving you a whole lot of different types of teas and just your experience, like trying all the different styles, and you're introducing it to some other people. I gave you some teaware, different pieces of teaware, different types of teas. And at that time, you were also kind of into the different types of jade as well. And so just getting deep into this Chinese culture, this kind of like artisan side of the Chinese culture, this tangible aspects of the intangible culture here, it's really cool to see like it manifest in teaware, and you being able to bring that back with you to America and really dig into it there. It's really wonderful.
I remember you were a little bit apprehensive when I first brought the idea up to you. Like, not that you were like opposed to it, but it was like, like, you're not a tea professional. Like that, there was definitely this like sentiment of like, I had to grow into it and really prove myself to you. I feel like that we could do this, that I could do this.
I drink tea with a lot of people, and sometimes they're just not connected to the tea, and so they'll drink whatever type of tea just slides right by them. But I think as soon as you kind of committed yourself to it, then I saw the change, where it's like, okay, now you're actually like studying the teaware, and I'm like, okay, this can happen. But before that, it's like you were just using tea as like a community building kind of experience, where you can get together with friends, drink tea, and talk. And I see a lot of people do that, and that's not a problem. I mean, tea is a great social lubricant, but for me, it's all about the origin of the leaf, the source, the quality, the make, and everything. So for me, it's just a little different, I guess, which I think we're kind of manifesting that with the teaware, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I remember like, you mentioning me just like drinking tea kind of casually. It was like literally like I knew that I wanted to go to China for tea. I didn't know what Gongfu tea was when I got to China, and Derek was already starting One River Tea, and so at the end of the year, he would give me, pounds of like different samples of teas, but like they're all samples. Like some of them they carried, some of them they didn't carry. Most of them were just small little bags, and I didn't have names for them, so I had no way of really knowing what I was drinking. It was just like they were all just interesting tea, and I think that it did take a change for that to develop into Tao Teaware. Yeah,
because I know a lot of people that sounds like a dream come true. Just getting pounds and pounds of samples and just no names, and just judge the quality, judge the style, judge the make. Like for me, like that's a dream too, where it's, you have all the tools you need to really educate yourself. And again, you have me as well that you can talk to. So, but again, that's, the origin. You started getting into it with the tea talks, with the Instagram lives. If you guys follow One River Tea on Instagram, maybe you can go back and dig up some of these old Instagram lives with me and Dart. That'd be really interesting.
It's crazy how far we've come in the last 4 years, since we started like brand development, right? Maybe 3.5 years, and it just feels like life now. Like it doesn't feel like it was time. It just feels like there was before Tao Teaware and now.
Right. And I do feel like in the past year, in the past couple months especially, this has really taken off. And it's really cool just to see how it's all been shaped organically from the ideas and the brainstorming of the brand identity and then seeing it how it functions in actual practice and the website design and our rhythms of sourcing and shipping and selling and it's really exciting to see it all happen.
I agree. Yeah. So one question I get asked a lot is, what does our name mean? And I feel like in order to do that, we actually need to go back to our first name, right? Fire and Earth Teaware, and unpack it from there, because that's kind of where it started. And then, as you said, we've kind of come into our stride, and it developed from Fire and Earth to Tao Teaware. So, do you wanna spearhead that off?
Yeah. So I really like Fire and Earth Teaware. It's still, one of my favorite names, and it's just so natural and so raw. And the idea here is like, how do you make teaware? You make it from mud. You make it from heating mud up with fire through that vitrification phase, and that's where magic happens. And so this is like the bringing out of the earth, shaping, and then firing and fixing. And that's like kind of the idea behind us creating a company that's all about teaware and also the ancient origin of teaware itself, where it's really just earth and fire are just primal forces. And it's really, teaware is one of the earliest forms of human art you can kind of see manifested in human culture. And so it's really cool. What we're also doing is getting back into the history of teaware, exploring all of these kind of the 5-song kilns and the ding yao that disappeared, and we're trying to rediscover it. It's really exciting, like an exploration of history.
I'm really partial to Fire and Earth Teaware too. It just became really clunky, both in like saying it at the beginning of things, like "Hey, I'm Dart from Fire and Earth Teaware," blah blah blah, but also like people just didn't remember the name. Like I would get a lot of people that just didn't remember the name, and so that's kind of one of those things where like as a business you have to be ready to pivot and shift. We both really like it. We still have the Dehua Gaiwans that have the Fire and Earth Teaware logo, yeah, and I still tell people like this is the origin of our company. Like it may not be our current logo, but like it still has a special place, like the fire with the cracks in it. Like it still has a special place for me, even though like we've changed the actual name.
Yeah, and so it's really cool because I think one of the red flags is when we had to create the shortcut when we're typing, like FAE, and then it types out Fire and Earth Teaware because we don't want to type that many letters, and if we don't want to type it that many letters, and it's our business, I mean, who else is going to do it?
Yeah, the website name, just everything. It was so long. It was so long. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then we just condensed it, fire is fire 2 syllables, Fire and Earth Teaware, so 6 syllables to Tao Teaware, just 3, cut it in half.
That was a thing in and of itself, like because we wanted to have Teaware in the name because it's still so unfamiliar to people, like we need like Teaware to be in the name. Teaware is already 2 syllables, so we had to come up with a word that was either 1 or 2 syllables and connect to the Chinese culture and connect to our brand identity. And it was like, it definitely took a lot more work, I think, than people realize, but like I mean, Tao Teaware, it's just smooth.
Yeah, it feels right. And so, yeah, why did we settle on Tao Teaware and not something like Pao Teaware?
A little bit of foreshadowing. So Tao itself. So a lot of people, and it's funny because some people like they relate Tao to the Tao Te Ching, right? And so like some people even just say Tao, like they just think it means like Taoism or Taoism, which there is some root in that, in the simplicity in which we brew tea. But additionally, the Tao comes from Tao Qi, which means earthenware in Chinese. And so not only does it mean that, there's a ton of other words, which we'll get into in later episodes later down the line, relating the word Tao. And honestly, Tao is not a word. It's a reference to a couple different characters in Chinese. But that manifestation of something that could mean nothing, right? It just could be, a sound, but that also has the levels of meaning which you get with Chinese characters, because you do have, one character that means multiple different things depending on its context.
Right. And so you have the alliteration of the Tao Teaware, and that just rolls off the tongue really nicely. And then the depth of the Chinese character, which it literally means earthenware, mud, like earthenware, teaware. And so we kind of were able to salvage a little bit of fire and earth with this Tao Teaware, and just a single character for the Tao. And it's the Tao Tse character, where it also, I think, means like cultivate, to raise, to grow, to mature and cultivate. So it has a cool depth. And as you said, I really like the slight allusion to the Tao, just everything has its own Tao, everything has its own way, its method, its flow, its path. And so it has a cool nod to that, but it really is just the Chinese character for the Tao Te.
And that's what I have on the mic here is it's our hollow sticker of the earthenware Tao. Get asked this one all the time too, right? Why do you have a teaware company and not a tea company?
Because I already have a tea company.
Well, they asked me that. So why did we make a teaware company as opposed to a tea company?
Yeah, and so I feel like teaware is incredibly underrepresented in the West, in the tea culture. And this is a really funny scenario or funny anecdote. I went to the Hangzhou Westlake Village where they're making the Longjing, the dragon well. And I met this top master, Master Tang Xiaojun. And he's making dragon wells, super well respected, country level master. And I'm looking at his studio. It's really beautiful. It has a nice like wooden log, tree trunk tea table and everything carved out, whittled out. And the teaware he's using, I've seen that teaware everywhere. I know it's like $2 for the cup. I know it's just incredibly cheap teaware. And I'm just really blown away by this. I'm like, why are you such an amazing like tea maker? You're making such high quality tea and then you're drinking out of, I almost said garbage, but drinking out of things that, you could buy a dime a dozen. And of course, there's the idea that the tea is what's important, not the teaware. But I would like to beg to differ. Like if you have a really nice teapot, a really nice gaiwan, a really nice cup, and you drink out of it, you can experience a different side of the tea culture, a different side of the tea itself.
I think a part of that too is you mentioned the tea table, right? Those style tea tables that you see in tea houses, that is literally a half of a giant log. I mean, it's a 3-foot radius tree trunk that they just cut out the part so that there's still legs, which are rounded on the outside, half circles. That's so ingrained and just a part of the culture that they don't really think of those as part of the teaware or the environment in the same way. Right. Whereas like in the West where we have nothing, right? We have no reference point for Gongfu tea, like the table, the mat, the pot, the gongdao bei, the cup, like those all add to that experience and that feeling. It really helps to create the full environment. Like that stepping into a tea house environment that you can't really explain. Like you can give pictures and videos and some feeling, but it's a feeling. It's just yeah.
Yeah, and to hit this from another side, I think one of the big things that inspired us is the education side of this. Because that's something, as Dart mentioned, that he noticed immediately that I'm relatively an expert in the world of tea and Chinese tea, where I've been to a lot of these mountains. I've been to the places where they're making this tea, and I'm learning, I'm learning these things directly from the people living on the mountain making the tea. I'm not reading books. I'm not reading online blogs or anything like that. I'm talking to people that are actually making it, and then I'm transferring that information out. And so what was interesting is we noticed no one is really doing this for Chinese teaware. We don't have an anthology for Chinese teaware, people that are going to all of the sources and just really recording it. And so it's like, it's a natural stepping stone for me, at least.
I mean, like there's a couple that I can think of that have like given us a glimpse, right? Like a part, like some of Mud and Leaves blogs. Fantastic. If you want to get into the origins of like some of the different teawares, Mud and Leaves blogs are great. Don's overviews.
It's Mayleaf Dom.
Yeah, Mayleaf Don. Mayleaf's overviews, like when he goes to Zhenshui or Jingdezhen, like the overviews are great, but it's all like surface level, your first kind of level things. Whereas like the nuance, like no one's getting into the nuances of the pottery outside of the fame of the name. It would be like if we were only talking about the 10 most famous Chinese teas and saying we did all of Chinese tea a service, right? Like it's good, it's a start, but it's missing a large component of what makes the craft.
Yeah, and I think one really cool thing here is where I'm stationed in China, I can go to these places and talk to the people making it. And I've done this in Chaozhou and Jingdezhen, and I've learned so much. We went to Yixing together and just barely scratched the surface there because the waters are deep. But it's really cool to be able to do this while I'm in China. But also, Dart, you've noticed there's also a huge ceramic culture in America that's just digging into this. And so there's another way to kind of explore this ancient culture from China in America. And so if you want to talk about some of the explorations with potters and locally that you've experienced, I think that's really interesting.
There is obviously there's a huge industry of ceramics, right? And that's really the largest scope of this industry is ceramics. And within ceramics, we have American craft ceramics or American craft pottery, right? And so that's where we get into these kind of cool drippy glazes and explosions on handmade pieces by people all over the country, right? But it could be anything. It could be bowls, it could be plates, it could be coffee mugs. So then we have to get further in from the American craft scene to small pot, gong fu pots or Japanese style pots, which will kind of just all group together into like American small pot. And there's probably only 2 or 3 handfuls of people who are doing this. So the first one that I probably got connected with in the deepest way was Mark Moeller from Sanguine Teapots. And his story is amazing and unique in and of itself. I mean, he's like plagued with arthritis and can only work a few days a week because his hands can't keep up anymore. But he's also using single source clay from his home state of Georgia. He literally moved after going to an apprenticeship in Taiwan, moved back to Pittsburgh because it was the most economic place where he could set up a full pottery studio in his house, converted an electric kiln to a gas kiln. I mean, the amount of things that like he's went through is crazy. And so he has so much experience, which has been really, really great to get to know him. But that's one person, one perspective. Pleasant Hill Studios. The potters that come out of Pleasant Hill make some of the best small pots in the country. And not that many people know about them because they're so specialized. They're so specific. But those who do, you'll know the names Cooper Jefferson. You'll know Jonathan Steele and Hamish, who's currently doing his residency at Pleasant Hill right now. These names are famous in the tea world in America, but if you don't know tea ceramics, you probably never heard of these people. And so that's what's really interesting is like these American small potters who are making the hardest style of ceramics to possibly make, which is a teapot. And the reason that it's so difficult comes down to the balance and the composition to make something that actually pours well. Think about like a coffee mug. What do you want out of a coffee mug? Most people want something that feels hearty. In today's day and age, you probably want something that's bigger, those oversized mugs that are 24, 32 ounces, something like that, right? And really, from there, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, does it have a good seal? Does it come together well? Most potters can probably produce an amazing tea mug or coffee mug. But a teapot, the spout, learning how to make a spout that pours like a glass rod like they do in China to start, and then exploring from there, making sure the handle is high enough that you get a nice balancing effect, that the teapot doesn't go too far and the lid doesn't spill off. Like there's all these little intricacies to making a teapot, some that matter and some that don't, really only come from making a teapot, as opposed to everything else. This community of small potters, I want to help elevate them, and that's a big part of what we're doing is connecting the tradition of Chinese and Asian style teaware and teapots, because there's so much history already there and foundational work that people can learn from, to developing America's own American small pot culture. Because it takes both. It takes the history and the innovation to make it a reality. And we have just a couple handfuls, and we want to help promote those artists now and in the future so that we can really help grow the American tea community as a whole.
Man, I really like what you say there. It takes the history and the innovation. And I feel like that's exactly kind of where we're posed. Like I'm here in China studying traditional methods of making teaware in these different regions according to tradition. And you're in America where innovation is just taking off. I mean, you see this in a lot of kind of American exports, the soft power exports, like the beer and the movies and the TV shows and stuff like that. America's doing a lot of very innovative things, and that's kind of where we fit with the ceramics. And so to bridge both of these cultures, to literally be on opposite sides of the earth and do this company, I think we have a huge potential to connect things that have never really been connected.
Maybe there's a company out there, and if there is, I'm sorry, but I don't think there is another company that's doing it the way we're doing it, having a partner in the West and a partner in the East. And for developing an Eastern tradition or culture, or sharing an Eastern culture in the West, I feel like it's really a no-brainer to have this setup. And it is really powerful to be able to learn what the culture is in the West at the same time as we're developing our understanding of what that culture means in China, so we can give it, the truest representation, while also, modernizing or making it, helping to share it in a way that's interesting for people in the West. Because tea is cool. It's not cool in the same way that like skateboarding is, but like doing tea gong fu style is something that is interesting and captivating. And we've already done it with coffee. Just nobody's done it with tea.
Really, really a no-brainer to have somebody in China and have somebody in the US and to kind of be there full time. But it's not easy. I mean, we're kind of having to devote our lives to this, where I'm living here full time, you're living there full time, and we're meeting several hours twice a week, every week, to keep up on this stuff. I mean, even right now we're 12 hours apart, different sides of the earth, doing a podcast, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it is the most logical.
I really appreciate having Derek, because if I could be in China every other month, I would, but it's logistically extremely difficult to be able to have that back and forth play. So having Derek on the other side of the world, being able to, work with our potters, because that's the other thing too. Like if we were in an industry, like we're getting the stickers made, we got those made instantly. I mean, within like 3 days of reaching out and got them shipped, and those could be here. That's something differently entirely. But to be on the ground with people who are making, like small studios who are making pots by hand, I mean, it would be almost impossible to develop that relationship, because that's the other thing, right? China's so, guanxi and relationship driven. Like we need that time with those people. We need time to develop those friendships. And even me coming once a year for a month and basically spending 3 days, maybe a week in a place tops, that doesn't do it justice. That doesn't do it justice to really kind of what they deserve, and for us to develop those relationships.
And that was definitely my approach for the tea, where it's like, if I really want to do tea and do it right, I want to be living here. I want to be here all the time. I want to be speaking the language. And like you said, the guanxi is a relationship. It's a connection. And so it's really, when I talk to the potters, I'm just like, hey, how was the monsoon? How's the weather? You guys getting a lot of rain down there? How is that affecting like the drying of the pots? And they're like, well, some of our studios are, a little flooded. And it's like, okay, how are the pots going? And then they show us the pots. And then one of the cool things recently is teacher Huang in Qingzhou. He posted about a teapot, a wood-fired Nixing teapot from his master. And I was like, this is a beautiful pot. I immediately messaged him right after he shared about it. And he was like, you want it? And I was like, yes. Can you sell us this pot? And he's like, yeah, sure. But he only has one of them. He only has one of them. And so that's literally, you could sleep on that and you could not get it. If you don't have the guanxi, if you don't have the connection, you could not get that pot. And so it's one of these small things where it is really essential to have somebody on the ground here in China speaking the language.
I don't think about it often, but it is something that I noticed, like going to Portland Tea Fest, right? Being present with the American tea scene at the same time as you're being present, because that was when the monsoon was going on. Like you were telling me like, hey, our Qingzhou pots are delayed because of the monsoon, and you were like messaging them and talking to them. And it really is like the sum is greater, than each of our parts individually. Like if I was just doing the American tea scene, that would be great. If you were just doing the Chinese tea scene, that would be great. But the fact that like we're able to be developing both at the same time, it's really like a blessing and an opportunity that I guess I don't think about as much as I should, but it really is something that we're really fortunate to have in our partnership and in our dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about the podcast. We just get to talk about ourselves and realize things about ourselves we didn't quite realize.
Speaking of which, it's about time to probably wrap up this. We'll definitely get back to the origin of Tao Teaware and more about our start, but we really haven't talked about it at all. So we wanted to kind of give a foundation, just, getting our toes in the water on this. So our last segment of the day is what we're sipping. So not just what we're sipping today, but what have we been drinking since the last time we talked, and what has, really inspired us. So Derek, what are you sipping on? What's kind of really been, doing it for you in the last little bit here?
So right now it is dansong season. All the spring dansongs have been properly roasted and they're resting, and I would like them to rest another month before drinking them, but I kind of want to give the people interested in dansong oolongs the chance to get them as soon as possible. And so if I drink them now, decide on the teas now, by the time I ship them out, but by the time they arrive in people's homes, they'll be properly rested. And so I'm drinking a lot of super fresh, heavily roasted Dansong oolongs. Right now I'm drinking the Dongfang Hong, which is the East is red. It's been brewed out quite a bit, so it's really clear, but this one has quite a heavy roast. And so I would like to see this again after about 6 months.
I'm so jealous because I don't know if you've seen, I had a post a little while ago because that was the first thing when we had our Chaozhou, our new pots come in. I was like, all right, where are my Dansongs? And I reached out and I have like one bag of like no name Dansong. It was probably a sample that you gave me actually. And that's all I have. So I'm like, man, I haven't had them in a while and I forgot like how mineral punchy they are. Just like how much of that like metallic, just deliciousness that you get.
I'm playing hardball with the Dansongs right now, where we've sold out of last year's Dansongs, and I'm just waiting until the new Dansongs are properly rested before releasing any. So like, yeah, like people have been asking me about Dansongs for a while, and we've been sold out for like over a month, and I'm just like not caving in on that. Where I'm like, yeah, I could buy some last year Dansong and sell it and make some money, but I'm just gonna wait.
For me, I'm on the back end of things. So I just got in our shomei cakes, and this has actually been something we've been cultivating for a while too. This week, actually, probably today, I'm going to be taking off every single tea on our website except these shomei cakes. And the reason for that is the cakes that we have on our website right now they're great starter teas. They're great if you've never had any gongfu tea before, but they're not the highest quality. And so what we really want to do with our tea, because we're a teaware company, is only have teas that we really feel like are the best bang for your buck, the best, quality for what you're getting. And it may be at different price points. It's not necessarily just like cheaper teas, but only having a select few 3, 5 teas that we really feel like are worth people trying, whether they're new to gongfu tea or you've been drinking gongfu tea for 10, 15, 20 years. So we're going to be taking all those down. And with that, I've been drinking our shomei cake, and this year was the first time that I had green shomei fresh. I was actually hanging out with Mark up in Pittsburgh, and Derek had sent the samples of the shomei to him, and it was the greenest, like tasted like a green tea, most vegetal shomei I've ever had, and I hated it. I was like, oh wait, this is not what I want out of a shomei. And just 3 months later, we got them pressed, and they're finally here in the U.S. And the pressing and that 3 months got them to the point where I'm like, okay, these are the sweet, sweet nectar that I love in shomei. Like, these are those huddle around the fire in a hoodie, fall weather shomei. This, yearly drinker that you put in a coffee mug. Like, it's there. So that's what I've been sipping on and been really excited about. Not just because of the shomei. We got the 100-gram cakes, which I really like. They fit perfectly, so we can add them in, as a sample potentially. Like right this week, we're doing a free cake with any handmade teapot purchase. But then also our art is our first custom art, and they're in English. Most cakes on the back, the description is all in Chinese, but we want to do it in English so that it's accessible for everyone. So I was really excited about those as a whole, but now the taste has finally come in too after they're pressed in that extra 3 months. And that's what I've been sipping on.
Yeah, it's fun offering this kind of behind the scenes. Like, this is essentially part of our meeting every week, and we just talk about what's going on, catch up. Here's our plan for the next week. Here's what we're working on, and so it's really cool just to open it up and have a glass window here.
Thanks everyone for joining us on Between the Cracks. Derek, I mean, it's always amazing. So it's fun getting to talk about the brand and the company a little bit more for everyone.
All right. So again, this is Derek from One River Tea and Tao Teaware. And that's Dart from Tao Teaware. You've probably seen his face all over Instagram. He does all the reels. he's a machine. I think today he's going to make 8 or 9 reels. We'll see him later. Thank you guys for joining. It's Between the Cracks podcast. We covered what's going on in the warehouse. We talked about the origin of Tao Teaware, and we'll get into that a little more later. Shout out to those of you who still remember Fire and Earth Teaware. And yeah, we finish up with what we're drinking on, and hope you're drinking something nice in your teacups.